Hello.
Hi.
How's it
Hi.
going?
I'm scared.
You're
Good.
scared.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hold on. I'll just rewind here. Why are you scared, Wes?
Cause this guy that's coming in, man, whoa.
Big
Big
guess.
time. Scary for me, man, you know? It's like somebody who taught you to walk, like revisiting them years later in your life. It's crazy.
Yeah. See, a big guest coming up. Hello, guys. Everyone joining us today. Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Once again, you know the drill. Drop your name and where you're from in the comments. Let us know also if you're team live or watching the recording. And at any point, if there's any questions, we're going to try getting to the questions. Yeah, drop them in because this today you're in for a treat. But before we get started, let us know how your week's been as well. Drop in the comments what's been happening in your life, business, personal, whatever. We'll start as well. What about you, Wes? You've just been working 24/7, haven't you?
Mate, 17-hour days. Maybe some of the guys I've been working with are listening because they said they might listen in. So if they are, hi to all like the Pfizer guys, like say hi. But yeah, big stuff happening.
Yeah, and also Wes, like a proper British person, is pretty red at this time of the year. Not sure if it's the hat that is more red or your face, mate.
I think it's the hat that's making me red.
Also, it's coming home. I heard.
Yeah,
I
fingers
was going to
crossed.
say that's a good thing. I thought if you
Yeah.
two ain't going to mention football, I'm going to have to, and that would be a
I
bit
just I
unfortunate.
just wish it comes home this time because it's becoming a bit much,
Yes.
every couple of years.
All these years of hurt, man. Not
Yeah,
good.
come on, England.
Some cool people already
Just
in the
give it to
chat.
them.
Like
Just give
Miroslav
it to them so
in
they
the
can
chat.
shut up.
Ada's in the chat. Jurgen, my guy, that's the guy I made Cyber Season G. And Simon. Oh, this guy's making moves. Talk about purpose. That guy that's just dropped in the chat right there, Simon. Wow.
Not a Nottingham guy.
Yeah, he's a nuts boy with a true purpose.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I'm in Nottingham today.
Yeah, you're actually
I'm in Sherwood Forest, land of Robin Hood.
Yeah. I'm not in Nottingham with both of you being there. Too dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, guys, come on, let's get into it. What we're going to be talking about today? Purpose-driven branding, always a hot topic in business and marketing. And look, we've spoken about this topic before, haven't we? But one thing we didn't have is this very special guest we're about to bring on.
The guest for purpose.
Mhm.
Big guest.
The
Big
guest.
guest. So, but before we start, here's a point to ponder. Let me just bring up my notes. Last year, the Edelman Trust Barometer, again, I think it's the third year in consecutive year, found people have more trust in business than they do with government and mainstream media. I think that tells us as business leaders we have a huge responsibility to shape a better world. Especially if we want to earn trust from our customers and communities. Yet we find also in recent years there's been a shift away from purpose-driven branding in some marketing fields in favor of profit first. So we're going to discuss all of this. And yeah, like I said, there's no better person to share their thoughts from decades of experience in brand and marketing than our guest today. He's the author of 18 books on the topic of brand.
One
He
eight.
18, yeah, he's responsible for bringing the term brand equity to mainstream marketing. He's been a professor of marketing at Haas for over 50 years now. He's vice chairman of Profit, and that's Profit, Prophet, a growth and transformation firm anchored in purpose. And most importantly, people recognize him as the father of modern branding. It brings us great pleasure and honor to welcome today's water cooler for Brand Talks guest. It's none other than David Aaker.
Yes.
Hello, David.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Hey.
How you doing?
Doing good, good. I'm in Northern California, and everything here is good, especially the weather.
Yeah, it looks sunny. Definitely.
Brilliant.
Did I miss anything in that intro, David?
Your intro was great. Thank you for that.
Amazing.
Okay, so let's get straight into it, and I think let's start with the I guess the definition of purpose-driven branding. So we're all on the same page here. You must have seen the evolution and probably many faces and definitions of branding as we see it today. Um, Specifically, what was the impetus for you? As in, when and why did you really start to focus on purpose in early on in your journey?
Well, I've been interested in social programs for a long time. In fact, the first book I ever wrote was called Consumerism: Search for the Consumer Interest, and that was like I had 50 years ago. But I was a student at Stanford at the time, and everybody was into consumer protection and that kind of thing. And so I wrote a book with George Day about consumerism, search for the consumer interest, and we wrote an HBR article about how you engage in social programs. And ever since then, many of my books have a chapter on social programs. So I've had a long interest in it, and I came to believe that the well, this an aside here. You mentioned brand equity. I
Mm,
wrote a book. I wrote a book called Managing Brand Equity when brand equity was first introduced into our field, which was in the early '90s kind of thing, and and when I defined it um, as including brand loyalty is not just awareness and image, it's also brand loyalty. And that's really what changed everything because heretofore marketing was a middle manager managing tactical advertising and delegating it to the agency.
Yeah.
And so when brand equity absorbed brand loyalty, it became clear that marketing was involved in the customer experience and customer insights and segmentation and product development. And so it got a seat at the table. Suddenly we had CMOs and vice presidents of marketing. And so in the ensuing decades, marketing really established itself as a strategic element and brand equity as an asset. And uh, and also an impetus of that came out of the 80s where we had scanner data, where people tried to manage marketing all of a sudden scientifically, and people were delighted. All the finance guys were delighted, and they did experiments which led them to use price off promotions because that was the only thing that moved the needle.
mm,
And they destroyed brands. And worse, they never generated any growth. They killed their profits as well. So that was in the late 80s, and people were therefore looking for an alternative way to motivate their business strategy, and that's why brand equity had such a tailwind. So anyway, brand equity was in there, and um, what happened is more recently, is that we've had some realizations that the battle is not over, that short-termism is not defeated and gone away.
mm,
And you see things like the last downturn, Google um, uh, during a downsizing, they killed off a 12-person, very successful group that was involved with food waste, and uh, and they just killed it off. I mean, they said, we have other priorities, and we're not going to do as much of this do-gooder stuff, and that's sort of happened all over the place. People, the short-termism, especially with big data and analytics, that's the same force that existed in the 80s, and it's happening again today. So we have to realize that the battle isn't over, and we have to defend the long termism. So then back to social programs.
mm,
One way that that people you know sort of jumped on the social program bandwagon when social interest became so important in the last decade. What was they and companies did jump on the bandwagon, and what they did was they had a system of grants, they had a volunteering program, and they had energy goals that was brought to life with hundreds of little small programs. And this was, first of all, it was the same. Every company was the same. There was no differentiation there. Second of all, it was, all these things were very vulnerable to downturns and short-termism coming into the effect. They're very vulnerable, and they were not inspiring employees. And employees are looking for meaning in their work. They're looking for a company to work for, an organization they can respect. It wasn't doing that. Grants, volunteering, and energy goes wasn't doing that. So I decided that that what companies needed to do was to develop signature social programs that are branded and that that have a wow impact. They're people look at them and say, "Yeah, you got to know about this. This is really creative. This is really impactful. This is doing something." And employees are looking at it and said, "I am proud to be here. I'm proud to be involved in that social program." And so what you have is a social program that helps the business. It gives it an energy lift, great visibility, especially among the target audience that know about this stuff. It gives it not only visibility, but an image lift. You feel good about the company and the brand, and it gives it engagement opportunities. And so that's the whole idea. You instead of just checking off the box and putting a lot of financial resources and employee resources into doing social good, you have a signature social program. And I there's a lot of examples where that is done so much for the company. Most vivid example is Dove, which created 17 years ago the Real Beauty program. They've changed the lives of hundreds of millions of women and girls. Literally changed their lives, given them self-esteem, given them a reason to be self-confident, and it just really triggered a way for them to fight back against this artificial beauty. You have to be young, you have to be thin, and so on idea. And the sales of Dove went from 2.6 billion 17 years ago to nearly 7 billion today. And it was all driven by the Real Beauty train. I mean, this is bar soap. This is deodorant. This is shampoo. There's no way you get visibility. There's no way you get an image lift. No way you get brand equity from those products and talking about them. But the Real Beauty, they did one of their many programs. They do a major program almost every year. And one of them in 2013, they had an artist sketch a woman based on her description of herself.
It was amazing.
He couldn't see him. And then he sketched the same woman based on a stranger's
Describing that.
description of that same woman. And the stranger's description version was much more attractive. And they did a campaign, "You're more beautiful than you think." That was the most viral ad ever produced in history at that point.
Yeah,
in history. And do you think they could get that kind of response by talking about bar soap?
No.
And I don't think so. And so there's no issue at Dove whether if they have a profit squeeze or business is down, they say, "Well, let's cut out the Real Beauty program because we can't afford that anymore." That is their business strategy.
Yeah. I think it's a classic example, the Dove one, and the longevity of it, and it's still going. It just speaks volumes, doesn't it? And I think also its relevance as well, because now as social media comes along and filters on AI apps and things like that come along, they can still speak to that message. So it's timeless in that sense.
So, David, that was 17 years ago, and I think back in the days it was a bit of a novel concept, right? So transitioning away from that generic social causes to something branded and authentic and specific for the company. But recently, there has been a lot of noise on purpose. So what is happening in the last couple of years then?
Well, I think the concept of purpose is is sort of a metaphor for uh, the fact that you really have to provide meaning and for your employees. They really have to respect the organization. They have to be proud of it. They have
Yeah.
to find a reason to go to work. And if and sales and profit goals don't do that. In fact, they do the reverse, and that's especially true with a younger cohort. So purpose is a way uh, to tell that story, to tell the need to do that, and also in the marketplace, especially in the B2B marketplace or the consumer durable marketplace, customers want to connect with not all customers, but a substantial a number of them. And it doesn't take many to make the difference between failure and success in business. But
Mm.
uh, 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 they also want to connect to a company they respect and admire. And so a purpose, if they can see a purpose that they really get inspired by, that can make a difference for them. And what I advocate is you need a purpose that includes social programs that under that umbrella. And if that doesn't work for you, and if it's too confining, then I think you need a side by side social purpose and business purpose.
Can you kind of elaborate on that then, the differences between a social purpose and a business purpose for the
Yeah,
audience?
well, um, take Salesforce for example. They're a company that came into being. Uh, they were the first cloud software company, and they introduced the cloud to the whole community. And their business purpose is to uh, connect companies with their customers. That's their business purpose. But
Mm,
their social purpose is to use this connection software for social good. And so, uh, and, and they have started. They of course started out when they're founding their company with a 1-1-1 program. You give 1% of your business, 1% of your employees' time, and 1% of your product to do social good. And that was part of there was when there's three people in an apartment talking about Salesforce. That was part of their strategy and so on. So um, it 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 fits into having a social purpose.
Amazing. On that point, when you're trying to introduce this new approach, these new models, this new way of thought, like how how have you dealt in your past when people have kind of pushed back or mimicked, ridiculed kind of your thoughts and your ideas? Because we get a lot of that, especially
You
me.
mean with respect to social programs? You
Yeah,
mean?
well, social programs or business purpose, like some people push back and they don't believe it. They're non-believers. So how have you dealt with that in your past, or have you?
Um, I haven't encountered that, but I think that's just because I tend to talk to the believers. You're I preach to the choir,
Yeah.
and so uh, and I would do write a blog. I've written 350 blogs or so on, and a lot of times I address people that are opposing, but I can't recall writing a blog like you said. So, how do you do it, Wes, when you faced with that?
I try and give a living case study, a bit like you did with Dove, to try and persuade and educate people that they give me a bit of flack. Or,
Which one is your go-to case study, Wes?
I mean, I use Tony's Chocolate Only a lot. But yeah, I think you have to try and bring some of the a little bit closer to home as well sometimes. And you try and it's a bit like what David says. If David's kind of like the god of purpose, they're not really going to challenge him, are they? But when Wes walks along, you kind of got to convince them and provide some backup and some insight, I guess, to try
Well,
and
I
lead
I,
you
I
on.
think I think where my idea of a social program ought to do help a business, that's I do get a lot of pushback on that.
Right.
Yeah.
On two levels. One is that you have to be authentic in your social program,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're just doing it to help your business, that's not authentic. I mean, that's you're just sort of exploiting
Hmm.
the social program, and that's the one that is most prominent in terms of criticizing my approach. And
Mm-hmm.
my response to that is that you what you do, you have to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have passion. You have to be a thought leader. You have to understand you're not just throwing money at it. You're not just throwing an advertising campaign at it.
Mm-hmm.
You're you demonstrate that in part by being committed over a long time period. So if this was just a fall campaign, uh, that's one thing. But if it's a 17-year commitment and it personifies itself in many different ways, uh, then and it's built into the culture, it's built into the brand structure. It's one of the brand pillars. If it's one of the things that's holding the employees together, if it's part of the culture, uh, then nobody embraces that. Nobody accuses Dell of being cynical and just doing it to sell, even though that's what they're doing, because they have that commitment and passion.
Hmm. Amazing.
So, David, how do we find it? How do we get to a point as brand consultant to get to that authentic purpose or social cause?
Yeah, it's really a good question, Martin. Really a good question. And a related question is, how do you develop your signature social programs?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, and it is really hard. It's not easy. I was on the board of an insurance company for 10 years, and I advocated this very thing during that time to the board. We need a signature social program, and everybody agreed. And we would give grants. Every year we'd give, 30 grants to anybody that applied.
Yeah.
And we had a committee that would choose which people got the grants, and everybody was discomfortable. Everybody didn't want to do that. Everybody wanted to have a signature social program. We couldn't find one. And what we finally did was we developed three mini social programs, each around one of the customer segments of our business. So
Mm.
we sold insurance to highway patrolmen, and for them we developed a program of providing teddy bears that they could give to children that were involved in an accident,
Mm.
and help them get through it. Another segment was teachers, and we developed a program to refurbish teachers' lounges. Uh, and that really sent a signal that we understood teachers were on their side. We know where they're coming from, and but that was a program only for the teachers,
Yeah.
and then we had a program for uh, well, also for education about um, a, a, a careless driving,
Hmm.
teenage careless driving, and we had a whole program that we had partners, and we sponsored that as a signature program. But again, that wasn't company. It didn't serve the whole company customer list. It was really for that segment of teachers, which was, I don't know, 20-25% of our business. It was a big one, but it was so anyway. We did find some smaller signature stories, and um, I tell the story of Barclays, and when they had they were at one time the least trusted brand in the least trusted industry in the UK, and that's not good if you're a bank.
No.
And and they got blamed because of the LIBOR stuff for the 209 meltdown, and anyway, they did all these ads saying that it wasn't really only our fault. Besides, we've changed and we're better, and you can trust us now. And nothing,
Hmm.
flatline, nothing.
It was
And
not working.
no, and then they developed a social purpose. We'll help people do the best they can be, and they asked their employees to develop social programs, and they developed 40 of them. Employees did. So there you have an example of a lot of mini programs, and out of those, some of those became their signature program. One was a program to help people cope in the digital age, and they called that the Digital Eagles. And they start out with 17 employees, 17,000 employees are now doing it. And they develop stories, and that's another pet topic of mine. You've got to communicate through stories. But they developed stories of some of their clients. One was Stan Rich, that was a football fanatic, and he got injured. He could no longer run, so he joined walking football. And he developed a website, and the Digital Amigos helped him. They did a video, and he got to know his wife, his grandson, his mates, and his passion for the sport and how he wanted to build it up, and how the Digital Eagles helped him. And they ran that video and some stories like it for the Digital Eagles. In that first year, trust went up 35%. And it made a huge difference, 6 times what the best they could do before. And so it really illustrates the power of social programs to lift your image, to give you visibility, and to change the conversation. And when I see somebody in a problem like Barclays was with trust, what I advocate is try not to fight back if you possibly can. But even if you do, change the conversation. That's what you want to do, is change the conversation. And that's what Barclays did. And the social program enabled that.
It's really interesting, David, and because you mentioned the power of authenticity, and the story that you just shared is about organic inside out development. And I
Yeah.
think that's the best way to make it authentic, isn't it? It comes from the people inside the brand.
Well, not necessarily the best way. I mean, a dub was a top down.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of examples of that too. But both work, and sometimes it's a combination of both. I mean, you have the sort of the upward kind
Yeah,
of idea flow, but then somebody in the organization, captures that and maybe gives it a brand, or elevates the brand, and then gives it much more resources, and
yeah,
scales it. So you can do it both. It can be a combination.
yeah, makes sense.
Amazing.
So, David, I think Wes has touched on this, and Wes talks about this often in our workshops as the elephant in the room, and it's usually from a financial angle. This, obviously, when we talk about purpose, people in market rooms across the world, I think, have this idea of what being purpose-driven is about. Yet, I think many see it as a buzzword or marketing hack, and often when that happens, we get into this kind of superficial world of words and no action. I've heard you speak or maybe write about companies making long-term commitments. Is that the best way to go about it, to see whether if they do have an idea of purpose and they want to execute on that long-term commitment plan is what you'd ideally want to see from them or help them with?
Yeah, the title of my book is "The Future of Purpose-Driven Branding," and my idea of the future is you develop signature programs that help your business, and so I think that's the route to go. And if you're a social program, if you're a nonprofit, your goal should be to find somebody that will adopt you as their as their signature program.
Interesting.
And then you can get a flow of resources and funds and so forth. Um,
I like that. So it's collaboration
Yeah.
on that level, I guess.
yeah.
Definitely.
And so anyway, that's where my strategic concept of purpose should be, and I explicitly, it should not consist of grants, volunteers, and energy goals. That's just not that's not going to be effective. That's not going to be enough. And you can do some of that, sure, but you need to have signature programs.
Yeah. In your opinion, then, on that note, this is a big question, but do you think every business of every size should be purpose driven?
That's a really good question. In developing brand, um, um, in developing brand pillars or a brand vision, I now call it. I used to call it brand identity. Now I call it a brand vision, and I used to call it brand identity elements. Now I call it pillars, brand pillars. But in developing that, which is a cornerstone of your brand management scheme, um, then I think that it's helpful to have a mission or a purpose, and I basically say, either one ends up at the same place usually. Some people have both.
Mm.
A mission is what you do, and a purpose is why you do it. But usually, the mission evolves toward a mission slash purpose, and a purpose evolves toward a mission slash purpose too. So I find that more people use mission than use purpose,
Mm.
and
Mm.
so I think you want to know not only what you do but why you're doing it. And if you call it a mission or you call it a purpose, I don't. And if you call it a brand vision or brand principles or um, it doesn't, or brand positioning. Um, I don't care so much about the labels
Mm.
as long as is my philosophy of branding is it's not a 3-word phrase, it's multidimensional, and it's not fill in the box model. You do it for what serves your purpose.
Mm.
So as long as that's followed and you have some overarching themes, I'm not so concerned with labels.
Yeah, yeah. It absolutely is, because labels can often be just words on the walls of offices, right? And that's fine, but if action follows, that's the most important thing. So whatever you call any of that, the most important thing is execution of those words in terms of action. We've got a question here.
Yeah. I think that follows in. I think what you're just going to say there. Like,
yeah, which one? The Simons one.
Yeah, like so. I think there's a question in there,
Yeah.
David, about how do we make it obvious? Like tips to the people that's listening in from your point of view, if they've got a purpose, which I know Simon has. I know this guy. How or what are your tips to kind of making this obvious and making this?
Well, I think what you need is something to carry the flag. You need signature. If say there's a business purpose and a social purpose, each of them need to have signature offerings or signature social programs, and that's what you talk about, and that's what you don't talk in the abstract. We really are interested in helping the planet and so on. You have to talk about signature programs. What really represents what you mean in a concrete way.
Mm.
um, and uh, incident what I kind of like is that um, when you develop these pillars, your brand pillars, it's really nice to put them on a card. And when that's done, it's nice. A card you can hand out. If somebody says, what do you stand for? You hand them a card, and you give them, these 4 2 or 3 word phrases, and for example, I work with the Haas Business School where I taught for a long time, and we had a group that was trying to figure out what Haas stood for. And if you look at business schools around the world, including the London School of Business and others, what do they stand for? They're all about global, entrepreneurship, leadership, and social doing social good. Every one of them, and I mean every one of them. You read a description of what they're about, and as you took your hand over the name, you wouldn't know what school it was. So in the Hawes Business School, our brand pillar, we're for all those things, of course, and we're the leader in at least two of them. But the pillars were, um, uh, challenge the status quo, students students always, beyond yourself, which is a sort of another take on this social program and stuff, and the most differentiating of all, and that's what you want to be, is differentiating, was confidence without attitude.
Nice.
You look at the London School of Business, you look at Harvard, you look at Wharton, INSEAD, Stanford, and Wharton. They got an attitude. The students there have got an attitude, and so do the professors. And that's not true at Berkeley Hawes. They don't. They just dig in there and work, and they don't expect anything to be handed to them, and they're different. And one of the things to apply to the school, they have to write an essay explaining why they fit those four pillars. And the result is, after they do that, the audience, the student body is really on board.
Yeah, and they're all pushing in the same direction, right?
And anyway, we created a card with these three things on it, and then there's a purpose at the top, and I think that's a nice exercise, because in branding, if you can develop a 2 or 3 word phrase that really clicks, that really resonates, that is so powerful. And then if you have 4 of them, each on one on each pillar, it's so helpful. And then this card just comes to life. And in the back of the card, we have a 1-sentence description of what the pillar is. And so anyway, I really like to do that.
I love that. So with regards to those cards then, are there also actionable steps, what you would expect from the people at an organization, the things that they can do to make those things come alive?
No. They're the umbrella over a bunch of programs that will make it come alive.
Right.
So when you say arrogance, confidence without arrogance, that has an implication of what students you want, what professors you want. It has an implication for what professors get promoted. It has an implication for how you manage the outplacement department. It has an implication for how you teach your courses. So you and you have some signature programs, like the application process is a signature program, and so no, it's just an umbrella out of which you have to have a lot of substance and content.
Amazing.
Well, I've got another question here. Sorry, go on, Wes.
No, you go.
I was going to say, I've got another question here. It's from a friend of ours who's also a purpose-driven brand strategist. I don't know whether you can see that on the screen, David. I would love to hear David's take on whether social programs always should have a connection to a clear sustainability goal, and if you think it's important to choose the goal where your business has the biggest negative impact. So I guess I'm reading from that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Annalie, should you look at the biggest challenge, so the biggest negative impact being the biggest challenge, and then double down on that?
I can't answer that. I think it depends on your analysis of the situation, and first of all, branding is really closely linked to business strategy. So you really have to understand your business strategy. So it's really hard to know without knowing the business strategy. Branding is also intertwined with corporate culture, and usually it both drives and enables corporate culture. And so if you get the brand right, it's pretty hard to have a company with a strong culture that doesn't also have a strong brand.
Mm.
And so uh, so they're intertwined. And one of the reasons social program is part of the uh, uh, of the brand is because it becomes a way for to develop a culture in which employees are more able to respect and admire and be inspired by the organization.
Brilliant. So I have two questions for you, and then one about us. So my first question is, who's inspired you? Who drove you to become you? I've always wanted to ask you this.
Gosh, that's really a good question. I really have been inspired and admired by Phil Kotler,
Okay,
um,
Yes.
brilliant. Yeah,
and the another is Peter Drucker,
yeah, yeah.
and both of these had in common the idea that in their 90s they're writing books, and they also had in common that they completely changed their field. I mean, they they just fundamentally were such thought leaders that they changed the way that people viewed, in the case of Drucker, business strategy, in the case of Kotler, marketing management.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I have to say that those people, but I've been inspired by some business leaders as well that have really done some. I mean, Lou Gerstner at IBM, for example, and um some of the Unilever CEOs, they've been inspiring too.
Right, brilliant.
Salesforce CEO.
Yeah. Do you I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have a purpose, a personal one?
Yeah, I came out of Stanford Graduate School as a statistician, and I built marketing models. And so it's still kind of fun to be a room where people assume there's that you don't know the language, and I actually do know the language of statistics. But anyway, so I built statistical models, and I got into advertising in a big way. I got into business strategy in a big way, and and there I came to believe that short-termism was too prevalent, and people need to build assets. And I decided that I would turn to the problem of creating brand assets because uh, that sort of built on my background in marketing research and advertising business strategy. And and so then that's when I started off defining brand equity, and then a second book on how do you manage brand equity. And so ever since then, that's been my goal, to try to help business and business executives uh, learn how to manage and create brand equity, and to learn the importance of doing so. So that's kind of been my mission. And a lot of my books that I've written since then have been to, to one of my first books were how to manage brands, and how to manage brand portfolios, but then I got into applying brands into areas of strategy that they weren't always there. And that was the book on spanning silos and creating signature stories, and branding and disruptive innovation, and branding and social programs, because branding was really underused and sometimes ignored in disruptive
Mm.
innovation and in social programming and in storytelling.
Hmm. Okay. And then lastly, this is the question that Ash loves. But we always ask our guests to ask us a question. I don't know if you've got anything on the tip of your tongue that you want to ask us on the fly, but if you have, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'd like to know what you see of branding going out 3 to 5 years. Where's this going, and what is the role of AI?
Cool.
Ah, who wants to go with that?
I don't know. I think we live in interesting times. I think we live in interesting times by the main understanding that every single market is becoming increasingly saturated, and lots of the products are offering the same features. So I think a lot of people and a lot of companies look into branding for developing a key differentiator, something that will rally people around. you talked about these social causes and the purpose. So I think we are looking for something that goes beyond the feature and the technology, which I think it is where branding will shine. And in terms of AI, I'm very excited by AI because it will make natural human connections and emotions even more important, because there will be more and more and more stuff that will be automated. So there will be more and more and more desire for real human connections, and that's where it takes it back to purpose, I think.
I think my view on AI is that there are two camps. There are people that will use AI for easy hacks and easy ways to do things, whatever that might be, whether it's strategy, execution, design, etc., writing, and then there's the other camp that will be, humans using AI to make their life easier and more efficient, but the actual ideas and the creation still comes from humans. And I hope to see AI being used more in the latter scenario.
Do you want me to go? I think the first part of that question was like, where do we see brands going? I think I don't know, the way I see it, it's probably a different way of articulating what we're all talking about, but I think loyalty comes into play, and it's how we create loyalty. I think that'll kind of be the flip. We can all say we can do things. We can all say as brand or metaphorically as people, if we talk about brands, oh, we can do this, we can do this, and we say we're going to do that. But unless you actually follow through with it, you don't actually gain any loyalty or respect. I think when you put that into brand terms, I think that's where we need to start moving to. Like, we need to create fans, we need to create loyalty, and that then becomes something that we can deliver and align and promise to. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It does. David, what's your view on AI then?
Well, I think two things. One, if you look at disruptive innovation, the reason that's so important and why people need branding to be introduced into that realm is because the frequency of occurrence is now so much more than it was in the past. I studied the Japanese beer data over 25 years, and there was only 4 times the market share trajectory change, all with disruptive innovation. But the point is, disruptive innovation didn't occur very often in 25 years. But now that's all changed, and it is really because of digital, and it's because of we don't have to wait 10 months to get a product on the market, because there's e-commerce, there's social media, and we have the Internet of Things, which opens up a whole new avenue for disruptive innovation. And I think that AI will also open up some avenues of disruptive innovation. So that's one element of AI. The other element is the one Ash mentioned, is the and at my company, Profit. My goodness, we are making our development of strategy much more efficient by using AI. We use AI to help us do competitor analysis, do a first cut at competitor analysis, do a first cut at segmentation, or where do the top companies hang out, and where the top customers hang out, and so we get some ideas, and we get some things that used to take a long time, and it was hard to ferret out articles and to talk to enough people, and then we get some ideas. Give me 20 taglines, and one or two of them are set us in the direction of some positive ways to go.
Yeah.
So it's making our work much more efficient, which means that it makes it less expensive and more accessible to more people, more organizations.
That's
Really
great.
good point.
Love to hear that. So we're coming to the hour now, David. Honestly, this has been such a great conversation, and we're so honoured for you to come on as a guest. there were so many. I think there were up to 200 people registered for this
Yeah,
event.
crazy. 206.
And there'll be more people watching it. There's so many questions as well that we've not been able to get through in the comments. But what I will do, David, is send you a link to the post again. And if you get time and have a look at some of those questions, that'd be great. Obviously, there's no obligation. What can we look out with regards to what you're doing? Any more books on the horizon?
Well, right now, I was thinking about writing a book about brand communities, but yeah, instead I've realized that I wrote a book called Aaker on Branding that served to summarize the 2,300 pages of content I've done on branding on 7 or 8 books, and that was 11 years ago. And since then, I've written 3 more books, and since then, a lot has changed, and so on. So I've decided that I need to revise that Aaker and branding book, and so that's the project I'm working on now, and it'll be out early next year.
Brilliant.
Great to hear.
All right, man.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So, thanks again, David. Really appreciate your time. Been very generous with all your tips and advice in the last hour. If anyone wants to obviously follow, David is obviously a top voice on LinkedIn, many followers, and I'm sure everyone on this stream is already following. But go check out David's profile on LinkedIn and the work that they do at Profit as well. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much, David.
Thanks for inspiring us, bro.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Peace, man. Have a great
Bye.
day. See you later.
See you soon.
Wow, 200 and something people with Wes online. I would have never imagined that will ever
Mate,
happen.
it's happening.
It's
We're
happening.
taking over the world slowly.
It's happening. It's happening. Another masterclass, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100.
Brilliant.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved it. Right, okay, guys.
I guess we're running over, but it is
Running
what it
over, yeah. Next week, who we got on? We can't say who we got on, but
Not
what is
this
it
week,
about?
the week after, isn't it?
is.
Or
Yeah,
is it 2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks. I know.
mean, the guests are being absolutely mental, isn't it? Like we got some crazy people.
No. We need to. It's Roger Martin, the one we're aiming for. So if anyone's listening in,
Yeah.
Roger Martin, come on down.
Connect us too. Let's make it happen.
Because we've got 2 out of a 3, I think, out of the Dons. So I think we need to get the third Don.
Yeah, me too. You are like, I can't believe you called David a bro. Thanks. I love it.
Come on, man. It's me.
If we were in the same room, Wes would have fist pumping and happy. And
I would have
mate, let's go
I
for a pint, mate.
I would have definitely hugged him. You know that.
Right, guys,
This
have
is
a great weekend.
Yeah. See you in 2 weeks. Keep spreading the love.